talk about the light harvesting and absorption with the nano antenna and maybe some other nano structure as well. And the work is done together with Ye Chen and Ye Xiaochui and Jingyi. These are two PhD students sitting in the audience. Yijing is my postdoc. And myself work at the Division of Electromagnetic Engineering, Boeing Steel Technology, Stockholm, as well as the Center for Optical and Electromagnetic Research at Zhejiang University. And we have a joint research center of photonics of the KTH and Zhejiang University, especially in Hangzhou. And this is my email. Pretty simple, sitting at kth.se. If you have some question afterward, you can email to me. First, let me just briefly introduce the well-known enhanced extraordinary optical transmission with a hole. If you have a nano hole, the light can penetrate for specific polarization. The light can penetrate through the hole, and the transmission can be pretty large. If you use the dielectric material, make a sub-wavelength hole, particularly nano hole, you can't see light go through. But with the metal, with the surface plasma resonance, you can have extraordinary transmission of light. So this is called extraordinary optical transmission, EOT, and that was done earlier, a decade ago, and people have used some other modified structure. For example, there's kind of array of rings or grooves around this nano holes to enhance further the transmission through this plasmatic hole. And you can make also grating to assist that to do the job. So this is a different, mainly is surface plasma resonance play an essential role in this kind of abnormal phenomena. Now, here I show you an example why this nano antenna can play a very nice role to enhance the transmission even further. And this example, mainly we talk about this cavity antenna. Cavity antenna has been widely used in microwave region, but not at the optical frequency. So here we follow the idea of the cavity antenna from microwave to the nanophotonics. So the structure is actually given here. This is the holes, nano holes. We expect extraordinary optical transmission. However, this transmission is still not enough for some other application. For example, like nano detectors. We want to harvest the light as much as possible and then squeeze to a nano region. And then putting active material there, indium phosphide, for example, to detect the signal. So then optical signal will be converted to the electrical signal. So if you want to make this detector as small as possible, you need to focus the possibly as much as possible in this large area, and then squeeze it to a nano hole through this structure and then to this active region at a very small area. And so sort of nano focal very efficiently. And the way we did it in this example, we putting a nano last on top of the nano hole. And intrinsically, you think this is a stupid idea. Why you putting an object blocking my light path? Because the light goes through in this way, and right on the light path, you putting an object block the light path, and you may think that the transmission will be reduced because you block the light just at the opening, in front of the opening of this hole. But turned out that the result is contradictory to what you're saying. And I'm going to explain the reason why with this structure we can actually greatly enhance the transmission rather than reduce the transmission in this case. Now if we look at this kind of, before we put in the hole here, we look at this structure, and the light is shining on this structure, and there's a cavity formed here. And this nano gold nano lots and the metal thin film surface, they form a cavity. And this cavity play a very important role. Now if we make a hole, and you see here from this pattern, this cavity is as a resonant, it harvests the light. The light even nearby, not directly hitting this nano lots, they will also squeeze to this area. So you see high intensity in this region, this cavity. So harvest the light and squeeze to these cavity areas to form very high field intensity here. So now we have the opening of the thin film, and see what happens. If this opening is right at the position of these bright spot for the non-resonant case, the resonant case means for this thin film, hole, it form fairly parallel resonant cavity, because here air, this surface opening, there's a reflection here, and also at the bottom opening, there's also reflection. The light goes here, due to different impedances, they will have the reflection. So the light, once entering this region, they can bouncing back and form a cavity. So this is the fabric parallel cavity. And when this thickness of thin film is chosen in such a way that this fabric parallel cavity will not be in resonance, then we call the non-resonant nano slit. And in this case, without this gold nano lots on the top of the opening, we just look at the extraordinary optical transmission, and the efficiency is only 0.6. And this efficiency is defined as the output energy. Output energy here with respect to the energy intensity integrated over the opening area. Okay, so that's why it's only 0.6. But in the later case, after enhancement, you will see this efficiency is much larger than 1. That is because we harvest the light, collect the light, and not just the light hitting the opening hole, but also hitting the surface of this metal field. Hitting these plates, they will also be harvested and goes to this hole and output. So in that sense, this integration of this output energy will be much larger than the energy that goes through exactly this opening small hole, because energy hitting on the surface will be also collected. So this is the efficiency representing the harvesting capability. So now, without this nano antenna, without the cavity and only this fabric panel resonance, when it's not in resonant transmission is not so high. It's only transmission efficiency is only 0.6, and now we're putting this gold nano layer on top, right in front of the opening. And you see this cavity eigen mode will be formed. And now if we have this opening right at one of the bright spot, and you see the efficiency enhance quite much, the efficiency go to 3. And that means this energy collection capability is not just collect the energy hitting on the opening, but also hitting outside the opening. They will also be collected. So this efficient transmission efficiency becomes 3. And if we open another bright spot, the neighboring one, there's 3 bright spots formed with this specific length of the nano layer, 3 spots, and we can open at any bright spot, the efficiency is equally good as 3, 2. Now, but if you open this slit at the dark spot in the middle between the 2 bright spots, and then the efficiency will be very low, it's nearly 0. You cannot harvest the line with this kind of cavity. So you need to open at the right position with this maximum field intensity for the non-resonant case. And then we can even adjust the geometry of this gold nano layers, like the length and thickness, and then we can improve further. The efficiency can even go to like 12, and that is like 40 times. Well, let's see, this is 20 times enhancement compared to without this gold nano layers on the top. And this is for the different thickness in this case, and also different lengths of the gold nano layers. And you can scan it, find the optimal the gold nano layer, which forms the cavity antenna. And we can also adjust the slit thickness, this thin film thickness, to improve the further. And I think that this, let's see, this is the slit case. And then we can even further improve the transmission. In this case, can go to 22. Then this is something like, let's see, the previous case is 0.6. So this is like a 40 times enhancement compared to the without the nano layers. And we can also tune the wavelengths to be harvested. This light wavelengths, different antenna geometry, we can tune the resonant wavelengths, obviously, and to the desired wavelength spectrum that we want to harvest. So that can go to the near infrared region. And that is also important for the harvest line for solar cell or detectors. So now if we look at the resonant case, now when this slit which form fabric panels cavity, when this resonant cavity is in resonance, you adjust the thickness of this thin film so that they form a resonance in this slit, form a fabric panel resonance. And then the transmission coefficient it's already large. It's 7.8. That means you can think about that way, around the 7.8 times of the opening area. These lines can be harvested, go through to this output opening. Now if we put the gold nanorods on top and form a cavity, horizontal cavity, and then we adjust the nano antenna's width and thickness, and then we can improve the further. Let's see. I think we can reach this transmission coefficient to 17.5, which is like 2.5 times enhancement for the resonant nano slit in this case. And we can do more enhancement by using an array of these gold nanorods on top. So then we form many cavity antennas, like an antenna array, and the light shining on these structures, hitting on the top, and through these gold nanorods, we can enhance the transmission to this single hole, and the result is it's 128% efficiency, and this is something compared to this is a resonant case. So then this is say something like 15 times enhancement, and you can think about this structure as a nano detector. You only need to put in, this is for harvesting structure, and here you just put in a nano detector here. This indium phosphide, for example, at the near infrared, is putting the quantum well structure, these things there, and then the very large areas of the light will be collected, harvested, and squeezed to the single hole and reach this point and reach the nano detector region, and that will convert it to the electrical signal in the optical. And you can actually make many holes, and you can put in many detector, or for solar cell you can just harvest the light. And these light, because it's so much enhanced, it will generate the electron in the hole very efficiently, and then you just need to transport it to the two electrode for the solar cell application. So this is for using these structured array of gold nanorods to harvest the light. And later in my next lecture, I will show some experimental result that we use the gold nanorod to harvest light or absorption for bioimaging purpose, for example. And we synthesize these gold nanorods in a chemical way in our lab, and it's good. Then these gold nanorods, you just put on the top of them, so you can avoid using the clean room fabrication technology instead of etching them. So what about using dielectric material? In some of the cases, maybe you don't want to have metal structure. Can we do some kind of similar enhancement with dielectric materials structures? So we can, for example, here I show you one example. for dielectric material. Now we make this hole as a defect of photonic crystal, dielectric photonic crystal. Here is a periodic array of dielectric lots, and here there's a defect. One lot is missing in each column, and this form a hole. The light, because it's a band gap, and the light can go into this region. And for this specific case, we studied slow light. And you see here at this region, the effective index is nearly zero. So the phase velocity is, here the phase is virtually the same everywhere. But again, it's in the stop band, so the light cannot go through this region. Once light gets into this region, it has nowhere else to go because the stop band but keep going in this region. And so this form a kind of waveguide. Now this structure has a problem for the harvest light. If I put in a detector or something here at the bottom, and the light hitting only at the small opening area, the light can penetrate through, while light hitting at the boundary here, far from the opening, they will be immediately reflected because it's a band gap structure. It's a highly reflecting structure, so they will immediately reflect it. So the efficiency of transmission will be pretty low for a wide spot size beam. So we can check numerically, say for example, if we use a Gaussian beam in the simulation, if the Gaussian beam's spot size is 2A, A is a period of the photonic crystal, and if just this size small, then the efficiency is okay. Most of the energy can go through this hole, this vertical hole. However, if our Gaussian beam spot size is 13A, and pretty large here, and then you see the transmission efficiency is pretty low, most of the energy will be immediately reflected by this boundary, highly reflecting photonic crystal surface reflect, and you see very small transmission. And this is not good. We want to harvest the light in a very large area. We want to harvest light, and we need the beam have a wide spot size, hit the surface, and we need to improve this efficiency for a wide spot size. So how do we do that? So what we do is we again, like the earlier case, we want to put in some kind of structure on top of the hole. Here there's a hole. And now before we put in the hole, we studied this kind of structure. How do we squeeze and harvest the light? Squeeze the light and harvest the light, go to this region, this horizontal region, and later when we open the vertical hole, they will squeeze to the vertical hole, slit. So first we want to harvest the light to the horizontal region, and the way we did it is using a slow light. Here, this photonic crystal, again using the let's see, using the band structure at this point, and effective index will be nearly zero. And we only need to keep two loads of the dielectric lots here, and then the light vertically hitting this structure, they will squeeze to this region. You see very high intensity here. You cannot using many loads of this large dielectric lot, otherwise form a photonic band gap structure, and then the light cannot go through. It will be immediately reflected. So we only keep two loads here, and the light can penetrate without a band gap effect. But on the other hand, for this horizontal waveguide, when they go into it, they will be trapped here, form a kind of zero index region within the band gap, and the light will be just squeezed, enhanced in this region. And once we have the enhanced field intensity harvest collected to this region, we can make a vertical opening here, and these lines were immediately squeezed to the vertical region. You see here, and these two loads will serve as harvesting structure. And once they harvest the line, they squeeze it to this region and then immediately go to the vertical one. And vertical here, you see the intensity is very large, and not just the internal field intensity is very large and suitable for nonlinear application, nonlinear effects. It also has a great transmission efficiency. So you see here the transmission coefficient for this wide spot size 13A, as we started earlier case. Now it reaches like 80% of the energy will go through. When I compare to the early case with this, without this harvesting structure, this 13A bright spot size can only give you like 20% of the transmission, pretty low. So this we can enhance at least 4 times the transmission coefficient. And here you can, this field intensity is very high. You can put in some nonlinear material there to study the nonlinear effects such as second harmonic generation or four-way mixing, these effects here. Or up conversion for. And we can also, this case, particularly like for the detector application, you only need a single hole. But for the solar cell application, we can make many holes so the energy can reach many the outer port, and all these outer port will generate this electron and hole pairs. So we can make many holes here, and after harvest with the same structure of harvesting light of these two loads of the dielectric lots, and we can do that. And you see in this case, transmission is like over 95% will be harvested, and this is just plot out one cells, one period, because it's periodic structure. And you see again, you see the very much enhanced field here for the nonlinear effects, suitable for nonlinear effects. Next, we can study another type of dipole antenna to enhance the transmission, and that is Electro dipole case. And in this case, in order to show the mechanics, we choose the microwave case rather than the light wave, because the light wave plasmonic will play very important role. They have the plasmonic resonance, but the microwave, these metal will not have any plasmonic surface plasma effect, but we can make an artificial structure to do that. And for the surface plasma, typically the TM polarization will be able to generate the surface plasma effect significantly, but not for the TE case. So we studied the TE case, and that's the most challenging case, TE case, and we see that this kind of metal sheet with these kind of opening, and we want the TE polarizing, even TE polarizing, the electromagnetic we can go through, significant part will go through. And this again, this structure is sub-wavelength structure, the opening, and you don't expect larger transmission for the TE polarization for this structure if you don't have this kind of harvesting or dipole structure, assisting structure. So now what we designed is such a structure. We covered this structure with a dielectric spacer. So this is in blue color, and to have a space separating this nano antenna and this metal sheet with the sub-wavelength strip for transmission. And these metal electro dipole antenna need to be finite length, and the length need to be appropriately designed so that it will form an electro dipole, like half wavelength antennas, dielectric antennas, and we put in these array of antennas on the top of the spacer, dielectric spacer. So these are the metal lots, finite length, and putting them right in front of the opening of these metallic structures with the opening slit. So then we can see without the cover layer, then the transmission is very low. You see the red curve is below 20%, or not even after maximized by 50 times, still is below 0.2. Here is very small because the TE polarization and the transmission for sub-wavelength whole is extremely small. Now, if we put in these kind of antenna, electro antenna, and you see electro antenna, each electro antenna, the current distribution you see here is a positive charge and negative charge on the two far end, and because the length is chosen appropriately, it's like half wavelength electro dipole. So at this wavelength, specific wavelength, will be resonant as the electro dipole. And with this electro dipole, and you look at the whole structure, and this electro dipole resonate here and harvest the electromagnetic wave, and then squeeze the electromagnetic wave through the sub-wavelength hole even for the TE polarization, which will not have any plasma effect at all. And you see the transmission is very much enhanced. It's reached like 70%, and that is 800 times enhanced for the transmission, just with such a simple electro dipole structure. So this, if it works at a microwave without the surface plasma effect, you can think about it even in the at optical frequency. You can do that as well. So now let's look at this using these kind of dipole for the absorber purpose. Now this is we want to design an absorber for broadband and polarization sensitive for both polarization and omnidirectional. That means for any angle of incident, we want to absorb the light. And we tested because the measurement, and we tested at the terahertz first. We want to absorb the terahertz spectrum. So what we did is here is a cutaway array electro dipole, similar as the one I just showed you earlier. These will be form electro dipole, and now for the absorber, you don't have the opening on the ground. It's so mainly you want to absorb everything. You want to minimize the reflection virtually. If no reflection, And since that you have a metal ground, then all the energy will be absorbed there. So you just only need to minimize the reflection. So in this case, we put in a spacer, and then above the spacer, we put in these on the top of the dielectric spacer. We are putting the electro dipole there, and this electro dipole. You see, look at the field distribution. In the current distribution, you see the positive charge and the negative charge at the too far end is oscillating, and because there's a ground plane, and here you see just below the negative charge there's a positive charge, the image, and the positive charge and the negative charge, and so these were formed together with this image. They were formed the magnetic polariton. And these magnetic polariton will give the resonance to absorb the electromagnetic wave. And if you look at these resonant frequencies, the resonant frequency and the reflection is very small. It goes down to 0, and then the energy will be absorbed because there's no reflection and no transmission, and then it must be absorbed. And besides this gold nano loss, the spacer, we also have some kind of loss. This dielectric material also have loss. So these energy will be, electron will be absorbed and become heat in this material primarily. And we can also tune the material. Let's see, if the length is different, and then you see the resonant frequency, absorbing frequency, the peak will be vary, and that because the resonance of this dipole frequency changed. And we make a simple analysis, and the resonant frequency should be, according to this magnetic polariton's analysis, it should be inverse proportional to the length. And you see here, this consistent very well with the analytical analysis. When the length getting shorter, and then the frequency will go higher, and linearly inverse proportional. So this also consistent, very well explained. And then we needed to check the angles for different angles. And you see here for the in this case for different theta angle, it works very well. However, for the azimuthal angles, some of the angles the absorption is low. In this case, so what we did is, and then that is because it also works only for one polarization. So when you rotate it at the azimuthal angle, some other polarization will show up. And then we make another dipole orthogonal to the previous one, and form a class, the two orthogonal dipoles putting together. And then we look at the angle dependence, not just the theta angle, but the azimuthal angles. They were all give very good performance for the absorption. And you see here all the angles, absorption is very large, and then these red colors representing high absorption. And for the large angles, and so this indicated omnidirectional, all angle, any angle, give you a very high absorption. And we also look at the band gap, the band range, the frequency. So here you see the band range is pretty large. It's broadband. It's say here it's this is nearly 1 terahertz along along the center of the phi. So that was like 20% of the bandwidth for the absorption, so it's pretty good in terms of the bandwidth as well. And for both polarization and for both TE case and TM case, all works very well. So this will give you omnidirectional and polarization insensitive for both polarization absorption with this kind of orthogonal dipole array to do the absorption. And if we can also broaden the absorption band further by multi-layer structure, and each layer have the orthogonal electro dipole as we earlier examined, and at this peak, now we're putting 3 peaks. The second layer will form a peak here, and the third one here, and then these 3 peaks will overlap, merge together, give an even broader band gap, bandwidth. So, and this is a structure. Absorption is like this. In this larger range, absorption is nearly 100%. And if you look at the details, there's 3 peaks there on the top, but they all above like the 98% or 95% above. Now, if we look at the current distribution for the first layers, you see the field distribution is oscillation. Here, this magnetic polariton formed here at this region. And if you look at the second frequency peak, is if you only have 2 layers, you see the 2 magnetic polariton formed. One is at the bottom pair, the second on the first 2 pairs. Now, if we have 3 layers of absorbers, dipoles there, and you see the 3 magnetic polaritons formed. One is this region, second and third, the middle pairs, and the top pairs. And you see the physical mechanics very clearly through these magnetic polaritons formed due to these dipoles. So with that, we can make a very good performance. And we did an experiment at the telehouse and fabricated this one. This is standard thin film deposition and etching in our clean room lab. And then we're using the Z Omega company's equipment do the measurement. Unfortunately, this equipment can only measure the vertical reflection, not the wide angles of reflection, only one incident angle, vertical normal incident case. But even for this normal incident case, we verify it works well, and for different lengths, we have the different frequency and absorption. All these things consistent very well, and efficiency absorption is very. This is simulation, and this is experimental result. You see they consistent very well. And this is a material spacer. We're just using the polymer standard polymer SU8, and we made this absorber, and it works well. Now we try to measure for all the angles, and that need quite much effort to adjust the experimental, but not using this existing commercial products. One has to set it up by yourself. Okay, so I guess any questions? Yes?
Going back to your very first slide where you talked about the normal, extraordinary transition.
Yes.
I was just wondering what that meant. I mean, what was extraordinary about these holes?
Yes.
What is it about these holes that are unusual? I mean, why? I mean, would you expect light to go through them or not? Or
well, let's see.
No, but without the bit on top.
Without like this case. Now this case is just without the gold nano loss.
No,
Just hope.
I understand that would be extraordinary because you're putting something on top of it.
No, I know. I just picked this picture. This is with the sub-wavelength nano holes. Just a thin field, you put a nano hole, and if you use the TM polarization, you will excite the surface plasma. You can enhance the transmission can be significant, like 0.6. However, if you're using another polarizer, like TM polarization, you will see virtually no transmission. Okay? And that's because you couldn't excite the surface plasma with TM polarization. So you see the different surface plasma play a critical role in this case. And if you think about this thing with the dielectric material, not metal, just dielectric, dig a nano hole, and you try to see the transmission, it will be virtually zero because you don't have a surface plasma needed in that case.
Okay, but as far as I know, you put this antenna on top, but I was wondering about the previous work in the first slide.
Yeah, that's what previous had nothing to do with the antenna. And this is the light distribution. And I just use this. Because these are just holes, yeah? I don't have a cross-section view.
Okay,
but anyway.
My question is, what's extraordinary about that situation?
Yeah, that's what I explained to you. In this case, extraordinary only for the TM polarization. When the material thin field is metal, the nano hole, you can observe significant transmission. While for the TE polarization, even with the metal nano hole, you don't observe that. And needless to say, if you have dielectric material, thin field, dielectric material, dig a nano hole, you don't see any transmission. So that's why it's called extraordinary. It needs two conditions. One is metal thin field. Secondly, it has to be TM polarization. Okay, so that's extraordinary. So people, when Epson first observed this phenomenon in experiment, and no one believed that. This is impossible. How can you? This is some nano holes. You can have so large transmission. No one believed that, and it takes quite a few years. Gradually, people understand why. Because circuit plasma.
Okay, thanks.
Yes?
Yeah, how do you get the nanorods over the holes?
Pardon?
How do you get the rods to stay over the holes?
Well, yes. If you use the clean room facility, just putting a spacer there and then etch the hole, that would be not difficult, but the cost is too high. And we are thinking like for the solar cell application, that's what we are doing now. And it's too costly, so we want to using gold nano synthesis through chemical way, synthesize the chemical way, so that's easier. And then these gold nano are just swimming on the top of these holes. So that's what we are doing now. We have a few students working on that. Just.
Yeah. Is there anything that keeps the rods over a specific hole if they're just swimming? Or are you just trying to do you get a whole bunch of rods and a whole bunch of holes type of thing?
Well, this because we are mainly interested in the solar cell. So we are testing not just this transmission but also the efficiency of the solar cells to verify this good nano loss works. So we're still working on that. Yeah. Yes?
If you consider loss, how about the efficiency? Loss of metal?
Yes, in all these cases, the metal parameters include the loss. The metal has a loss. We use the real materials simulation. Okay, well, since we have very much behind schedule, these tills and APTS in this chemical way, we wrap them, and then outside we have the amino groups, and this outside the silicon nanosphere, inside these dye and the PDD drugs. And then we need to do the surface modification because we need to let these nanoparticles targeted to the cancer cell. So we need to do the surface modification, and we using the GA modified surface modification, and then we do the bioconjugation. And because most of the cancer cell will be overexpressed by the TF or FA, so in this example we use the TF, and we need to replace some of the groups with TF here, and this we're targeting the cancer cell. But anyway, you only need to know that after we have the dye for fluorescence imaging and the PDD drugs for the cancer cell celebrate wrapped inside, we need to do the surface modification and the bioconjugation in order to do the targeting job. And here we see the different size, the bioconjugated the silicon nanoparticle wrapped inside with the dye and PDD drugs, different size, and then we target the cancer cell. In this example, you see the cancer cells, and you see the bioconjugation and the fluorescence very obviously attached to the cancer cell. While the other, for the contrast comparison, and so let's see the upload. This is the cancer cell. This is the for comparison the healthy cells, and you don't see the fluorescence. And here in this is just transmission imaging of the cell, and this one fluorescence imaging. As you see clearly the cancer cell. And now we do the cellophane. These drugs, PDD drugs, we activate these drugs with the light, and then you see, and this we're using this specific drug approved for clinical purpose. And you see here there's an image, and then with the treatment of these PDD drugs, and this is the cancer cell, this is the cancer cell, and the cancer cell will be killed by the PDD drug, and you see this aggregation of these cancer cells. Well, this is for comparison. These are the healthy cell, and you don't see the pattern of the aggregation, and this indicates that these cells are killed. They're dead. The dead cancer, they tend to aggregate each other. So this you can using these nanoparticles for the bioimaging and for the therapy as well, kill the cancer cell. And in this case, the same. These PDD drugs we wrapped it and also for the specific targeting. And you see the aggregation. And, this one is for comparison using the healthy cell. Healthy cells, and there's they will not be overexpressed by the TF conjugated silicon, and you don't see the fluorescence. And another nanoparticles we use a lot is the quantum dots, and the quantum dots I presume some of you are already familiar with quantum dots. Depending on the size of the quantum dots. These are the semiconductor nanoparticles, a few nanometers in diameters, and they will give different colors of emission. And you see very colorful result with the same material, cadmium silicon, different size, and give the different colors. And you can control for this fluorescence. And for the bio application, we need to wrap this quantum dots with some kind like silicon oxide shell to reduce the toxicity to cell, and also for convenience of the surface modification and bioconjugation for targeting to cancer cell. So we, in this example, we coated it with a silicon shell through the chemical way, and then we do the cancer cell imaging. And this in the middle one is the cancer cell, and you see very good overexpressed by imaging of the cancer cell. And the upper one is without the TF conjugation, so they are not going to overexpress in the cancer cells. Even you have the quantum dot there, but they will not be targeting to the cancer cells, so you don't see the fluorescence. And the bottom one is using the healthy cell, but the nanoparticle is the same, and also TF conjugated. But since this is a healthy cell, they cannot be overexpressed, so you don't see the fluorescence either in this case. So these are comparative. And we can also, instead of just testing on in a tube, or we can also do the bioimaging using the total internal reflection fluorescence, the microscopy. Putting here and here, we put these things on the glass, and because the evanescence wave tells, and they will excite the fluorescence, and then you immediately see in this microscopy setup, and you see here this is the cancer cells fluorescence, and this is for the contrast, and you don't see the fluorescence, just dark here. So now, after showing these nanoparticles, I want to mainly focus on the good nano loss and compare to them. We have used the quantum dots in old days, and also some other dyes, and we compare with nowadays. We use the good nano loss much more for the biosensing and particularly imaging. And good nano loss, depending on the shape. And specifically the ratio of the length over the diameter, aspect ratio, we can give different spectral response. And they have a few advantages compared to the other fluorescent dye quantum dots I showed you earlier, and it's less toxicity to the cells, and it has a surface plasma resonance tunable over a very large range. And so mainly we're using the surface plasmas, this extinction absorption, and it's in near infrared or invisible. And here you see this, each gold nanolux has 2 peak resonance in this extinction spectrum. And the first peak is always remain the same position when you change the aspect ratio, the ratio of the length to the diameter of the gold nanolux. While the second peak can be tuned over a very large frequency range. You see from visible to near infrared. And another good thing is because it's good nano-large. It has a surface plasma effect itself can enhance the local field significantly and can be combined with the enhanced Raman spectroscopy, these things together. So if we compare gold nano with quantum dots, these things, anyway, this in terms of toxicity, this gold nano is less toxic to the cell, and in terms of the synthesis, this is much simpler and cheaper compared to the quantum dot. Quantum dots not only have the kind of toxicity effect to the cell, but during the synthesis process, it also has some kind of danger where you're facing some of the toxic chemical stuff. While golden nano you don't have that kind of problem. So there's these kind of advantages using golden nano particularly at the university academic research. And we synthesize these golden nano in our chemical lab. We first glow in this chemical liquid. We glow these seed golden nano and then let it keep glowing and become longer and more golden nano loss. And by controlling the concentration of these chemicals and the reaction time, we can precisely control the shape of the golden nano and particularly the aspect ratio of the length over the diameter of these golden nano. And you see here, these are the different shape of the golden nano we synthesize, and you see the spectrum, absorption, extinction spectrum is over a very broad range you can tune. And for the biomedical application, we need do the surface modification and biconjugation for these gold nano. So we need to coat it either polymer or silicon oxide for these gold nano. So this here, one example I show is using the polymer to coat these gold nano and reduce the toxicity to the cell. Because during the synthesis process, inevitably you will have this CTAB on the surface of the gold nano, and this will have a little bit toxic effects to the cell. So we coated polymer will improve this effects, and they will be more stable in the bioenvironment. Because these are polymers compared to the metals. Otherwise, you could have the oxidation of the metal. And we can, these polymers, we can easily make them positively charged or negatively charged, and even can have some kind of covalent binding, very strong binding to the bio or different layers. And in our lab, we mainly using these polymers for the negative charge. We have 2 types, and also for positive charge with 2 other types. And particularly for the bioimaging case, we need a very tight attachment, and then we're using PAA and PAH. because they can not only have the positive negative charge attraction force, but also can be covalent binding together. So, and we use the multi-layers polymer and several layers rather than just one layers. Now here the gold nanorods are synthesized, chemical levels have this CTAB as its on the surface. They are during the process they are positive charge, and then we put in the PSS negative charge, and then we put in another polymer positive charge, several layers coated, and then we can. For one example, we do the sensing for the very little amount of the strep hafting. Strep hafting is important for some of the by effect. If you lack of the strep hafting, your hair start to falling, and you feel dizzy, and a lot of effect, bad effect. So you need to measure this kind of small concentration to a very accurate level. And if in a tube, the liquid, you can just, in our case, we put in this, these gold nanorods coated with the polymer to this liquid with the strep hafting, and you see here each strep hafting, these strep hafting will be surrounded with this strep hafting, and if it's on the glass slide, you want to test it, for example, blood sample, and then we need to put in BSA, because BSA will allow them these biomolecules to mobilize on the surface of the glass. So then we look at the dark field microscopy to see with the BSA, these gold nanorods are attached on the glass slide, while without BSA, they will wash away, so you don't see these gold nanorods, these absorption spectrum. And now we see a different concentration of strep hafting, a small change, say like a 10 nanogram per milliliters, and you see dramatic change of the absorption peak of these gold nanorods. You see here the shift is very much obvious, and if you look at the physical reason why a small concentration change in strep hafting will cause such a bigger spectral peak shift is because these strep hafting attach these gold nanorods through the biconjugation, and you see here a different concentration. They have a kind of aggregation, complete different aggregation, and that will cause certainly a bigger spectral shift with this case. And we can also do that on the glass slide and with the BSA, and then you'll see different concentration have different spectral shift. It's not clear, and we put in these spectral shift plot out and on the curve, and then you can detect the concentration of this strep hafting. I apologize for this. This figure not so clearly somehow. And we can using these gold nanorods coated with the polymer for the bioimaging purpose. Again, we're using these polymer positive, negative charge, and positive charge, and then for the cancer cell imaging, we need to do the bioconjugation specifically for cancer cell overexpressed. We needed using apo transferrin, and this apo transferrin will be attached to this polymer surface. And they will be overexpressed and targeted by the cancer cell. And see here, these gold nanolog, they are several layer pattern. If you look at the zeta potential, they are the potential. You see they are positive and negative and positive. And this is the specific targeting of these gold nanolog to the cancer cell. And you see here this color due to the gold nanolog's absorption spectrum, sort of kind of red, pink colors in this case. While for the comparison, this is healthy cells, and you don't see these pink color, and only see the blue color. And this blue color is the cell fluorescence of the tissue of the cells. So you see clearly the difference because the nanolog is specific target to these cancer cells. And also we can using these nanologs combining with quantum dots for the quenching effect and do the sensing. And the quenching effect here is this is shows the principle. Gold nanologs, quantum dots will have the fluorescence effects. However, when the gold nanologs is very close to the gold nanosphere, Pasmani effects, and then they will be quenched. These fluorescence will be quenched. So here in this case, we using the DNA through the hybridization. These two DNA they are complementary to each other, so they attach to each other through the hybridization. And then the gold nanolog quantum dots will be very close to the gold nanolog sphere, and then cause a quenching. And you see the fluorescence of the gold nanologs. The beginning is pretty large, significant, and now it's quenched. The fluorescence is small, and we can using this one for the sensing purpose. Now we can using another complementary DNA and to do the measurement. This is to be measured, and they will replace this part, and these golden sphere will be replaced, because they will go to attach this one complementary, and then they separate. And then the golden quantum dots will start to give the fluorescence again, and you see here. So in this process, with this process, we can measure the concentration of the specific DNA, and we can do that in the microfluidic channel, and these quantum dots and gold nanologs swimming in the microfluidic channel, and through the hybridization, they will attach to each other, called the quenching. And here is the quenching effect when you have these complementary DNA swimming in this channel. You see the quenching effect. The fluorescent quantum dots disappear, while in the original case you see a lot of fluorescent quantum dots. And in this way, you can measure the concentration of the DNA of specific sequences. And the quenching effect we have studied and found out that when there's a spectrum of the quantum dots overlaps to a maximum extent to the gold nanolog spectrum, extinction absorption spectrum, and then will cause maximum quenching effect. For example, if our quantum dots inside our chemical lab has a fluorescent spectrum with a peak around the 600 nanometer, we have to synthesize our gold nanolog so that their absorption peak will be around the 600. So they will have the maximum overlap integral and that will cause the maximum quenching effect. And in order to study the quenching effect, particularly the quenching effect as the distance between the quantum dots and the gold nanologue distance varies, we have to code it, these gold nanologues with polymer or silicon oxide, so that we can control the distance between the gold nanologue and quantum dots precisely, and then measure the quenching effect. And this distance we can precisely control, and also the quenching efficiency, and we measure, and then we get these curves, and this curve fitting very well to this theoretical condition of 1 over r the fourth power, and this is a flat effect, theoretically predicted and consisting very well. And in our gold nanologues, we have a CTAB coating and positive negative charge polymer coated, and different thickness we can control. So that quantum dots, the gold nanologue distance can be precisely controlled. And then we can do the measurement of the DNA, sensing a very small amount of DNA. You see here the gold nanologues and the specific DNA and complementary DNA. We were attached to the gold nanologues. And then the quantum dots we were biconjugated with complementary DNA. And this gold nanologue certainly has polymer coated with a specific thickness we want to have, and then through the hybridization they attach to each other on the surface of this polymer, and then we see the quenching effect. And this is original quantum dot fluorescence, and this is the maximum quenching when we have the maximum overlap of the absorption spectrum to the quantum dot spectrum. And in the middle case, the dashed case is when these DNA is not complementary to each other, and then these quantum dots just swimming around rather than attached to the surface, because there's no hybridization. And then the quenching effect will not be so significant. You see in the middle region. And we can using these gold nanologues for the bioimaging in the darker field, for the as I showed you earlier, and we can also using the coated with the silicon oxide rather than using the polymer. And the silicon oxide has some advantage compared to the polymer. And we coated these gold nanologue with silicon oxide, and again do the bioimaging and for the cancer cell, and it works very well in this case. So I think I try to catch up with the time back to the schedule. Let's see. So, any questions? Yes?
I wanted to ask, how deep is the layer on which the gold nanoparticles can be visualized? How deep is the depth?
You mean the thickness of the coating?
Yes.
How do we control them? Huh?
How close to the surface these nanoparticles should be to be observed, the thickness?
Oh yes. Particularly for the quenching effect, we have this kind of curve. So if you want the quenching effect, quenching efficiency to be high, to see clearly the quenching, so you need to be very close. You see here at this level, so like 4 nanometer, 5 nanometer, you need to precisely control them. So we're using these polymer coating or silicon oxide. By controlling the reacting time, we glow them.
So it's very close to the surface.
With magnetic, why?
Because I thought that magnetic nanoparticles they could be absorbed on the dipole layer. But the optical nanoparticles they can be absorbed by the surface. And if we use magnetic, then magnetic field can detect on the dipole level. The dipole levels.
We are talking about in vivo treatment. You want the magnetic nanoparticle go deeper to the tissue, or?
I thought that they can be absorbed when they are deeper.
At this moment, we mainly do all these experiments at the in vitro. It's not in vivo yet. In order to utilize these nanoparticles for in vivo application, you need to solve the problem of the aggregation of these nanoparticles. When you sort of like inject to the blood, before they reach targeting to your cancer cell, they very likely will aggregate to each other and get stuck in your this blood vessel. So that needs to be solved. Magnetic nanoparticle, I think that you may have the same problem if you want to inject them into the blood through the blood circulation. So mainly people doing the in vitro at this stage. Yeah. Or you can test it on some animals for human precaution. But these are the physical. What depths these nanoparticles can reach is mainly the physical. We can through injection or so it's not much related of whether it's optical or non-optical. Any other questions? Maybe we take a break. You want to take a break?
Let the tape stay with